virtual hand, I'll call on you and ask you to unmute yourself. Anyone want to kick it off tonight? Otherwise, I will go to my questions and see if something else sparks it for you. Do we have any shroom users? Anyone that want to break the ice with that? Anyone want to break the ice with their shot stories? Brag about how they're so excited to hug me in real life on May 20th. Hugs are free, but I won't push them on you. I'm going to be vaccinated by then. You're also vaccinated and you want to have a hug, come on over to me on the 20th. I see Allie has her hand up. Love to hear from Allie. Allie, please talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hugs all the way. Team hug. I've missed hugs. I have never done taken any shrooms, so I have nothing exciting to share there. I will say I have another inadvertent themed beer because I had the Sasquatch on my beer can last time. Now I've got the Mexican Honey Light from Indeed, so very good. Also fits with the theme.
Yes,
so keep that going throughout the year. I loved this book. I thought it was really, really, really creepy. In a really delightful way. I thought she had some beautiful turns of phrase that I wrote down in my journal because they were so great. One of my favorites was, do you want a coffee? It's no good telling tales without a drink. And I just thought, books and bars, that's what we do. I love it. And I liked the description of the characters. I got really swept up in the descriptions. I thought maybe the grossest thing I've ever heard is the idea of mushrooms growing out of someone's disgusting flesh. That literally turned my stomach. But how cool is it that she found a way to turn my stomach that viscerally? So I really liked it. I probably, I don't know, maybe a 4.5.
Wow.
I really enjoyed it. And I'm very excited to hear what everyone else has to say.
So are you normally grossed out by mushrooms though? Or just
no.
coming out of somebody's flesh? Okay.
No, mushrooms, great. Mushrooms in someone's just the descriptions of, I can't remember his name, was the weird patriarch, weird guy.
Oh man, yeah, we will be going deep on that guy in a second.
There's a lot there. But yeah, that was the vivid detail that really stuck with me coming off the books. Oof.
It wasn't very visual. I think it really did put incredible imagery in your head. I think she did a decent job of, maybe not that I would know personally, but maybe I've talked to other people who have ingested a shroom or two, maybe not from someone's flesh, maybe on a bad pizza, or maybe just, things that they found and shared with friends. But I think she did a good job of really getting kind of trippy and very visual, and just the images that I had in my head were quite explicit and extreme. So Katie's had her hand up. Katie, talk to us. Katie, are you still with us? Katie, I'm asking to unmute you.
Yep, I'm here. Sorry, there was some button confusion. So I will not be partaking in mushrooms because the last time I had a homemade gummy, it sent me to the ER because I had a seizure. So my recreational days are over. Do
you think it's because it was homemade? Was it because it was homemade?
Probably because the content was probably higher than it should have been.
Okay.
So yeah, though I will not be partaking in anything else of that nature. I thought the visuals in the book also were great. I loved her descriptors because they were on point without being overly done. The main character and Francis were both really endearing to me, just because he was so I want to get out of here, but it was kind of that I'm stuck in this family thing that I actually know people who haven't had this kind of weird situation, but they felt stuck in their family situation. So that was kind of endearing. And can we not do another incest book in like a year, Jeff. This is like 2 in the past 6 months now. Come on.
Listen, I don't search for them. I'm not looking for the incest books. And I don't necessarily like when all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you know, it's an incest surprise to me. I'm not trying for incest books. Although, I mean, maybe they're marketing them to me now because they're like, oh, you like this one? And I don't even know that's why the publishers maybe are like, just send them another incest book. That book club loves it. That book club, that's how it is in that family.
Don't give the
I'm not
incest
trying.
book good reviews on Goodreads. Just stop. Just give them little ones. That being said, I'll wrap it up with saying the grossest visual I had was when the pustules were broken and she was like choking on the bile and the stuff. Like that was probably the worst part of the entire book for me. It was so gross. Just thinking about pustules and sharing that with another person was a little too much for me.
Yeah, I guess, you know, that's the horror part of it though, right? I mean, there's a little bit of gore sometimes. But yeah, that was, I mean, you definitely wouldn't want to have been eating while you're reading that part or listening to that part. I get that. And again, not intentional. I apologize if the incest was, you know, it's not a thing. It's not a books and bars trait. It's just you know, I think it's something in the water. Authors are talking about it lately from, I don't know, who knows? We'll see. Evelyn's hand is up. Evelyn, get us off this incest topic, please.
Oh man. I absolutely I'm hearing a lot of interesting things. First of all, never done mushrooms.
The night is young.
Yeah, you're right. But I am told, but I don't really do I've never liked marijuana, but I'm told by my brother that I would like mushrooms. So I don't know. There may be mushrooms in my future. I am visiting him in Seattle this summer at some point. So anyway, you know, I'm so glad Allie and Katie, you know, have positive thoughts about this book, because I am not a horror person and I did not like this book. And I just thought like the first like 60%, like 2/3 of the book completely dragged. And I was like, where is this going? This is really boring. I don't want to read her gross dreams and all of that. And I was at first, and I really did like the character of Noemi. Like I thought she was charismatic and strong and knew who she was, and you know, and I wasn't really sure where it was going to go. Like, was this book going to be all about sort of like what is a strong lineage, what is strong blood, the sort of racism that goes on in the book. And I wasn't really sure where it was going to go, and I didn't like pretty much any of it, and none of it really got resolved, other than like maybe racism isn't, or the strong lineage isn't the way to go. So I don't know, but like Allie and Katie both made really good points on the description being good, and it was just as gross and as good in describing the grossness as a lot of Neil Gaiman, who I'm not always a huge fan of because of that, like how well he describes the grossness. And I'm not like, I don't want to read that necessarily. That's just me personally, but like, I think that's a testament to the author, perhaps. The only question go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, the only question I really had was I was a little confused about Harold, and like they were saying that he's like 400 years old or something, but like they didn't move to the mines and stuff until like the late 1880s, early 1880s. So I wasn't sure, like, did he get the shrooms in the old country in England? And if so, because I was sort of imagining like as a priest being like a Mexican sort of tribe, but I guess it wasn't. Like maybe it was like an Irish or English thing, because isn't that Oma, whatever, the snake, isn't that an Irish thing maybe? I don't know.
Ouroboros?
Anyway, yes, that. I thought that was an Irish thing, but maybe, I don't know.
like a Celtic symbol.
Yeah, I thought that was a Celtic symbol. I could be wrong.
Great question. If anyone can chime in, if they remember, if it's stated how, like, if he's 400, yeah, when did he bring it over? How was he already, like, swallowing their souls before that? I see a hand that knows. All right, Gretchen, tell us.
I know the answer. It's like
Go for it,
school.
Gretchen.
No, they talked about that he brought the soil over from Europe
Yep.
so that everything could be just like it was in Europe. So I took that to mean that he also brought the shrooms with him.
And that was, yeah, I remember that felt a bit like Bram Stoker, a little bit like Dracula, like, you kind of like move the coffin with some of yeah, that was another really Gothic aspect to it. Gretchen, you've also had your hand up for a while we have you. Want to make your other comment?
Yeah, I did. So first of all, never done shrooms, not even the kind that come on pizza. I do think they're gross. To be clear, it's a point of contention in my house because not everyone thinks they're gross, but I'm the one who cooks, so we don't eat them. But I thought that her descriptions of going into a dream and not being sure if it's a dream or if it's not a dream was so well done. Just thinking about when you kind of come out of a dream and you're not really sure, did that, you're kind of half awake. That really rang true for me. She just did such a great job with that description. And I thought that seemed to be very Wuthering Heights, where
Yeah.
he doesn't know, is it really happening or is he dreaming? And that I thought that was really, really well done, the way that she could kind of shift into, conscious awake, and then that just how it is when you are kind of coming in and out of that dream and you don't know what's really happening. It was like a dream I had earlier this week where I had a dream that my husband and I renewed our wedding vows, which first of all would never happen. It's not that we don't like each other. It's just that we're really not into those overly romantic gestures. And so that was the first thing where I'm like, okay, this can't be real. But it felt really real.
I hope your husband hears this and then surprises you by reproposing and
Yeah, if
asking
he
you.
does that, I probably will kick his ass. So
all right. Well, you know what? To thine own self be true. And I'm glad that you guys are both cool with that. That about each other. Yeah, I mean, I think writing dreams well is difficult, and also not telegraphing it so easily and making you wonder about it, to the point where you're like, oh, this was a dream, or is this another dream? Like, you start questioning things. And I think that adds to the whole psychedelic aspect of the story and the mood that it definitely sets. I mean, this is definitely a mood, I see Sue's got her hand up. Sue, can I unmute you?
Hello.
Hi.
No on the psychedelic mushrooms, but I love to eat mushrooms. I liked this book more than I thought I would. Not quite a 10, but pretty close. I definitely think she's a great writer. She pulled me in. Like I said, wasn't expecting it. But I did have a thought that perhaps the Q from QAnon may have read this book, because there are the references to eating babies. And if not this book, perhaps he or she is a Gothic aficionado, because some of those QAnon kind of culty things seem very Gothic to me.
Yeah, or is it possible that Moreno-Garcia here is,
maybe she's Q.
Throwing that out there. No, not that she's QAnon, but that, like knowing to bring something like that up. I'm not sure of what the timeline is here on when we started hearing about QAnon and that versus the publication of this book. But
what came first?
Yeah, but I'm a sucker for a good cult story. So anything that's, I mean, sometimes you got to eat a few babies to make the right cult. Am I right? I mean, you know what? Isn't that the saying? You got to eat a few babies to make an omelet. It's something like that.
Throw on a
Would you
few
rather
mushrooms.
read, if there was a poll, another incest story or another eating baby story? I mean, these are things we have to think about, or another Neil Gaiman. These are your options. So choose wisely. Thanks, Sue. I'm glad you liked it so much. That's awesome. I see William's had his hand up for a while. William, talk to us.
Well, first of all, I have done mushrooms. Big fan. Would recommend to those open. One of my first experiences, I happened to be watching a horror film while I was coming up, which would not recommend that experience.
Wow.
The setting you partake in is really important to like what things are going to be like. I love Gothic horror. Picture of Dorian Gray is probably one of my favorite books. So I love the moodiness and the description of this book. I can't remember who, but someone said it was slow. Like, I love slow burn horror. You kind of just feel the shadows slowly kind of sweeping in this book, and like once you understand like what's happening with the spores and how it's affecting her dreaming, you can kind of go back and slowly start to see like, wait, did that happen? Did it not happen? I don't know. So I love it. The last thing I wanted to bring up is going back to the mushroom growing out of people. If the vivid, glorious description wasn't good enough for you, there is a TV show about the Hannibal Lecter books called Hannibal, made by Brian Fuller, and there is absolutely a episode where the case of the week is hunting a fungus farmer who grows fungus out of people. So you could see that if you so choose. Brian Fuller is a creator I really like. He makes super horrific things that are also really beautiful, the same way this like horrible things in this book are written, but still beautifully written and described. So, this has definitely been my favorite Books and Bar book so far.
Wow. Awesome. Well, happy to find that for you, and glad. That's really great. I have not seen Hannibal, but it's long been on my list, and I keep liking Mads Mikkelsen more and more and everything else I'm seeing him in. So now going back, I think it'll be really exciting to finally watch that, to see his performance. I just wasn't maybe ready or interested at the time. I like good horror, but I don't always have the buy-in from other people like my wife to watch those things. So they're things I usually watch by myself alone in the dark. And that helps because I actually want that visceral feeling. I like being scared to a certain extent. And so to me, horror is similar to comedy in the sense of, when it's working right away, and it's just a really visceral kind of, you feel it, like you just know when it's right, but they're both hard to do well, and there's a lot of bad versions of them, and they can be sort of subjective, but when it's done well, as I'm glad that you thought this one was, it's very nice. So thank you. I see Kara's got her hand up. Kara, talk to us.
All right. Hi, everyone. I love mushrooms, but I haven't done the fun kind. But I'm open to it, like if it ever happens, I'd be down. I love this book. It was definitely a 5 for me, and I am a huge fan of this author. One of our Books and Bars regulars, Abby, actually gave me my first Sylvia Moreno-Garcia book, which was Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I've loved her from that, and I've read all of her books except for Velvet Was the Night, which is her latest. And I would say to Evelyn, if you didn't love this one because it was horror, she doesn't just do horror. Every single book of hers is a different genre. It is wild. She did telekinetic Pride and Prejudice. She does crime. She did a vampire one in the city. She did 1980s witches with record players. She does so much cool stuff. She is an awesome writer. So I love her. The telekinetic Pride and Prejudice book is called The Beautiful Ones. And it's another great book. But this is in my top 2. I love Mexican Gothic. I think Gods of Jade and Shadow is my number 1, but Mexican Gothic is my number 2. So huge fan. I was as I was reading this, I could like just see it like in my head. I think her descriptions are excellent. And I was really reminded of kind of like Crimson Peak by Guillermo del Toro, like that movie. And then also I was getting like Lovecraft Country vibes, the Misha Green HBO show. And I was just like, oh my gosh, if Guillermo del Toro and Misha Green teamed up, they could do like the movie or the TV show, and it would be just excellent. But with their weird like white supremacist cult family and Lovecraft Country, I was like, oh yeah, that's like very strong vibes. And I felt like Letty kind of reminded me of Noemi. So I don't know. I was just I loved it. I would do definitely more books like this. That would make me happy.
Awesome. Well, Kara, a lot of times you're the naysayer, so I'm just happy that you really love this one and that you love her other stuff. You've inspired me. I love your descriptions of some of her other works. I definitely want to check some of those out. And I knew that just the buzz around Velvet is a Night, that I had to check that one out, coming out soon. So, all right. I love it when you get into an author that already has a decent body of work that you can go back and enjoy, like you don't catch up right away, but that's going to be a solid one to go back to. So really exciting. I see Maura's got her hand up. Maura, talk to us.
Yeah, so I may or may not have been on mind-altering substances when I read this the first time, which really sets the mood. I highly recommend that if that's your thing. And then reading it with a clear is subjective, with a with a mind maybe that's not on edibles, because I just I'm gonna reiterate, I loved it. I just thought it was wonderful. I kept thinking, I rewrote Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights with lyrics to match this. I loved the not subtle at all undertones to colonialism and the way that it wrecks countries. And I just thought it was amazing. And I loved Noemi. I really identified with her. As someone who flirts and is like, why am I flirting? I have no interest in this pasty mushroom hunter. But it was great. And 10 out of 10.
Awesome. I love that you not only have experienced shrooms, but you melded the two together. It's like you listened to you had Wizard of Oz and Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon on at the same time. You took the shrooms and you read this book. I mean, you know what? You need to write to the author and share the song that you wrote about this. Share the Kate Bush variation too, or maybe share it with us at least. Love to check that out. And maybe if you want to sing it or something too. We're totally up for that.
I will not.
Okay, I can cut it from the video. If that's what it is that you don't want it on.
I don't want to punish anybody.
Okay. Fair enough. I see Rebecca's hand is up. Rebecca, how are you? Talk to us.
Sorry.
Uh-oh. Hey, you're still muted.
Got all excited. I apologize.
That's okay.
I just drank something. I'm going to be the naysayer. And I think it's going to be because I listened to the audiobook and I was not in love with the narrator, particularly her, the way she used the male voices. And so they really creeped me out, and I did not want to, not creep in a, like I thought they were real or anything, just like bad acting, I guess. And because I wasn't seeing the words and the things on the page, I was doing other things, not on mushrooms. I have done the fun kind of mushrooms in the past to try to make it seem like I could do art or something better. And it didn't really work for me. It's not a thing. I love the regular variety of mushrooms. But this book, that dragging lasted a little too long for me. And I got, at the end, I understood where it was going, but by then it was so dramatic and what's the word? Predictable, I guess. Maybe I've read too much of this kind of stuff, but I could see where it was going from pretty much the beginning, even the incest. I mean, everything was predictable, or at least lots of things dropped. So I don't know why, and I'm going to blame it. I wish I had the experience that most of the rest of you did, because I would have liked to have enjoyed it. But I just felt, okay, I'll get through it and be ready for books and bars. So I am, though, very willing to read some of her other books, because I do think she is an excellent writer. I think I was mostly just put off by the Audible, or the person who, the narrator. So that's my thoughts.
I gotta say, Rebecca, I didn't love this reader either, or at least the way this reader did this book. It wasn't one of the better audiobooks versions that I've done. So yeah, I don't think it served it well. It was probably better, the reading aspect of it, than the listening to it for this one. Usually I'm really big on, I'll tell you when the audiobook is great, but yeah, this one didn't do as much for me either. Something you said though reminds me of when I was a kid. This is really going to date me, but they had on the back of a box of cereal like a scary record, and you cut it out, the cardboard, and you could literally play it. It wasn't vinyl, but you could play this on a record player, and it was the back of a cereal box. And I was playing it at the wrong speed. I was playing it at 45, and then I was fine with the scary story. But when I played it at the proper speed of 33, it scared me so bad I ripped it up and threw it away. I never wanted to hear it again. And so nowadays I could speed up the audiobook or something like I normally do anyway, and maybe it wouldn't be as scary or it's good. But whatever speed I played it at, I didn't love this audiobook either. But Rebecca, while I have you, was there anything in the chat that you saw that we should bring up right now? Maybe I caught you a bit off guard, and I know I was late to name you co-host tonight. But.
Right, I have been reading, and I think most of the people are reflecting back what others have said, agreeing or disagreeing. I don't think any stand out alone thread has come out. But I will be happy to let you know if anything comes up.
Okay, feel free to jump back in if we got something, because you might not be able to raise your hand again. Maybe you can now, I don't know. All right, Dr. Todd, I see that hand. You got it up. I'm so excited for you. Talk to us, Dr. Todd.
Indeed, was finally able to get it working. Yeah, exactly. And I love hearing about all the addictive disorders. It solidifies my career for me. This one I gave a solid 3. I didn't think I was going to like it coming out of the gate, and I thought it was pretty okay. I agree with many of the comments regarding the Gothic and the cultural layers on the Gothic, and really there was 2 layers. One was the Mexican one, and one was the English or British one, and so they were kind of competing with each other along the way, and I found that kind of interesting. I was not disturbed by the audio book. I found it okay. I thought that she being the author was slow in parts that were unnecessary. I could have edited out several areas that weren't there, that others might have thought were very apropos. But for me personally, and I recognize I have gender bias with reading, is that I typically like male authors over female authors. I find female authors are way into process, and male authors have a tendency to just punch, kick, get in, and do. So it was good. It was surprisingly good. I was pleased. Very good. So that's
excellent.
That's comment.
Thanks, Todd. I see that Rachel Geiser's had her hand up for a while. Rachel, are you with us? Talk to us.
Yeah, hi. I don't have a ton of things to say, but I say at first first I was a little disappointed when it started going supernatural. I was really excited to think that maybe it was all down to the spores and the mushrooms, and whether unintentional or not at first. And I mean, I got into it when it all started really crashing to a head. I got back into it again. That was nice. But at first I was like, dang it, I was hoping for something a little more rude and realism, which I don't know why I was thinking that with Gothic. That was probably the wrong mindset to go in with that, but I did enjoy it. And I can tell that the writing is good, and I'm really enjoying the book, whether I think I am or not, because it just was unsettled for a few days as I'm reading it, and because just really the environment really got to me, the setting. She did a really good job of just like making that kind of flow through the book, and I thought it was affected me in real life as well. But I'm not a huge horror person, because unlike I think most people, I really do not enjoy being scared. I don't find any kind of pleasure in that at all. But I was convinced at the end, and I wanted to ask if I'm the only crazy person about this, that I was convinced that somehow Harold had gotten still into what's his face, mushroom white, very pale faced boy, and then like at the end, kind of like a horror movie, there's gonna be like a jump scare that she suddenly realized Harold was still there and she's stuck in this room with him or something like that. I was convinced it was gonna happen. That was like trying not to, like, you know, when you're excited to get to the next part of the book, I'm like covering the other page because I don't want my eye to wander to it and find out that it happened. And I don't know, I was just, am I the only person who thought that was gonna be a possibility? But I wasn't expecting the happy, this peaceful ending that it came out to. I was really expecting that, oh my God, they really didn't get away in the end. But maybe that's just too many terrible horror movies that I've.
Yeah, we're so conditioned to the scare release scare. It's become such a trope, especially for modern horror films, probably from, I don't remember what the first one was, but I mean, we see it in like from Halloween in the late 70s on. Everything has, you know, the sort of the surprise ending. Carrie, you know, I hope I'm not spoiling a lot of stuff. But anyway, Carrie, Halloween, they all have, you know, this there's a shock, and then, oh, you're okay, and then there's another shock. And there can even be the little thing, and it's repeated. It's a formula, and this is also similar to where horror and comedy combine with the how there's a rhythm to it, like how comedy comes in threes, you know, and if you say something more than 3 times, usually it's not funny. But if you say it a lot more than 3 times, it can become funny again. Like it's like beating it to death almost. It's weird. Like with horror, it'll be like the cat jumps out, and you know the audience jumps, and you're like, oh, it was just the cat. And then the woman turns around, and Jason, you know, has an ice pick kind of thing like that. That's how it goes, right? And so you know, like, oh, I got scared, and then like, oh. And then you get really scared, like at the serious one sort of thing. So yeah, to Rachel's question, if anyone else felt that they, you know, that there was going to be that other shock ending, did this end too happily in some ways, or did we miss a shock? You know, is there still a chance? Is there a chance for a sequel? I don't know. Donna might have it written down on a tiny note. Let's ask her. Donna, talk to us.
Yeah, Rachel, I'm glad you mentioned the ending, because as I read this book, well, first of all, I thought the building of all of the details was handled pretty well. I mean, I love Wuthering Heights and Rebecca and those kinds of novels, and creating those atmospheric details, they were just so piled on, even from the moment she arrived at that house. And I was wondering, how can this author possibly sustain this through another, you know, 200 pages or whatever? And because of the introduction of so much more and more and more creepiness with the, you know, the fungus and in the walls and just the oppressiveness, and the cemetery scene with the fog and getting lost in the fog, and it just built and built and built. So, and just got really creepier and creepier. So, and I think there was also a progression with Noemi, in that I think she started off, I mean, they were even describing, oh, she was wearing her high heels and her cute outfits and all that. And seemed like this lightweight kind of socialite type. And then as she's more and more determined to save her cousin and to figure out what's going on here and get what she can from, I liked that healer in town. I thought she was kind of a cool character. But then, you know, so by the end, she's kind of taken charge and she's determined to get out of there and so on. So there was kind of a nice build to the character that I think sustained me as well. But the ending, I thought it was really ambiguous at the end. I just wondered if there would be, I wasn't necessarily expecting another big scare or whatever, although I kind of think that's sort of an interesting idea about is Howard still there. But I think we don't know the effect that the long lasting effects somebody like Francis or Noemi would have had from their encounter with that house. So I thought they seem, yeah, it seems like kind of a happy ending, but I kind of like the idea that they could be kind of an unusual couple down the line. So maybe that would be something to kind of think about for the future. Publishers Weekly described this as delightfully bonkers. And I guess that kind of fit a little bit what I thought when I was reading it. I thought, what? You know, because it just kept getting more and more sort of over the top. And just the last thing I'll mention is I appreciated the dropped references to pop culture people that I don't know anything about. I mean, I think there every once in a while she'd compare somebody she looked a bit like Katie Girardo. Who's Katie Girardo? I mean, I liked that there was a different kind of surrounding culture to this book that is not your usual kind of set of references to people that we all know, you know. So it kind of took me out of my usual element into a very different world. And those little touches, I think, helped that too. So.
Did you then look up Katie Girardo? Are you?
Well,
you know, I meant to. Now?
I ran out of time. Who is she? Does anybody know?
Any Katie Girardo fans want to chime in? Katie Girardo is famous for eating mushroom babies. She used to make no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. No. Maybe Kevin Mattson can tell us about Katie Girardo. I bet he can't, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because his hand's up. Kevin Mattson, tell us.
So I had my hand up before that. I do not know who Katie Girardo is. I do not know. I cannot. I hope that somebody can tell me too. I'd be happy to. Do you really know? Right? Or you don't know? You're going to Google it? All right.
Yeah.
So I did like this book, actually. I had put it down. I've read about 40% of it, and I'm like, God, I just can't get into this. You know, it's just not quite pulling me in. Even though I could appreciate the writing, I thought the writing, oh, so good. And like people have said, a lot of you have said, you know, she just kind of builds this world and just kind of the construction of the sentences. I really appreciated a lot of the writing, but I couldn't quite get into it. And then, so I put it down for about a week or 2 weeks and came back to it. And then I couldn't put it down from then on. I'm like, oh, this is really, these characters are well developed. These characters, everything, it really drew me in the last half. I didn't know anything about it. I never, it's extremely rare for me to read about a book before I read the book. So I don't have any idea what I'm going. I go into a lot of books from Books and Bars. I just go into them blind, whatever. If somebody says, oh, we're going to read The Chain or whatever, I don't know what The Chain's about, or I don't know what any of it's about. But the title for this, Mexican Gothic, made me think of the portrait American Gothic and the farmers. I don't know if you guys know you know, a lot of you'll know and I'm like, I was kind of expecting it to be like about farms in Mexico. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was clearly not that. This was not American Gothic with these farmers, you know, or whatever, the portrait. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm glad that we picked it. It was a solid and extremely well written. I would love to read more of her work. I'm glad that a couple of you have mentioned that. I will definitely look back at least one of her books. So thanks, Ellen. That's all I don't know I see you put this up. I'll look up.
Yeah, she's an actress. Yeah, she's an actress. And she had some dealings with John Wayne it's a fairly, yeah, there's a Wikipedia on her. There's some YouTube clips about her to check her out. And then if you don't know American Gothic, you've seen it parodied. It's funny, I could see, why you might think that actually especially from the start about what they're talking about. I guess I knew going in that it was supposed to be like a Gothic horror. So it was like, but like, what if we put a Gothic horror in Mexico? We don't, not as frequent of a locale for when you think of Gothic horror. So it's an interesting mix there. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. Speaking of, hopefully you're having a nice beverage or some food or some other ways that you celebrate it. So I see Kara's hand is up. Kara, talk to us.
The other thing, someone else mentioned it, how they liked like how she held her own in the anthropology discussions. I think that's another reason why I like kind of had a particular fondness for this book. I minored in anthropology when I was an undergrad, and it was fun because like all of the references, like the books that she talks about and like the discussions that we had or they had in the book were like very much discussions that like I had as like an undergrad, like learning about it. So it's not getting too deep into anthropology. Like my friends that like majored in it and have masters would probably read this and be like, yeah, some very like basic undergrad concepts here. But I thought it was very fun. And I had read some of the books that she was referencing.
Nice. Any other anthropology minors out there that want to stand up, get this little clap? I love that. We've found. Eventually we'll find the book that encompasses somebody's specialty. I love it. That's awesome. No, I certainly, I take it and I learn it and I'm like, okay, like I wasn't able to question anything here, whether it was, accurate or not. But yeah, I haven't answered my own icebreaker questions, but let's just say that I think if you're going to do shrooms for the first time, you should have someone that knows what they're doing, sort of as a guide, and someone who's sort of like your safety, someone who hasn't done that. So like maybe not everyone that's involved is being affected. So you have someone who is kind of watching over you, just in case. Oh, I see Maura has a sample from her work. This is very exciting. I see Evelyn's hand is up too. Evelyn, talk to us.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Kara was saying. Like, it's interesting they positioned her, Noemi, as like the anthropology sort of expert aficionado, and then she had this like friend Natalie who like was into psychology and who knew about Jung and Freud and like talked to her about it. So she was like, I think Jung and Freud said X, Y, and Z. So I thought that was a little that was a little fun, but also like planted friend. So that was pretty funny. That's all I really
planted friend. And I love your margarita representation also, Evelyn, as noted from Kirsten in the chat.
It's doing a little Cinco de Mayo party over there. So
very nice. Well, man, wish I could be at a Cinco de Mayo party right now. Soon, everybody. We'll be back.
Jeff, isn't this a Cinco de Mayo party? Come on, Oh, you mean like, okay.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for saying so. It is.
Yeah. What are we? We are chopped liver.
No, you're right. This is a Cinco de Mayo. It's a virtual party, though. I guess what I mean is I'm still looking forward to the in-person party. So, Todd, you are right. I am a jefe. I'm not a dealer, though. I am. I deal knowledge, and I deal books, and other fun stuff. But I make a mean pizza with mushrooms on it. Mushrooms, black olives, good stuff.
Pretty attuned to the addictive instruction, and that had to come from somewhere. Generally, experience, unless you've read on the mushrooms and extensively.
Yeah, Todd, I feel like I'm getting a personal consultation right now. Are you going to charge me for this? This is should everyone be listening?
Yeah.
Can everyone please just shut off your audio for a second?
Yeah.
I need to have a private chat with
Yeah,
Dr.
you
Todd. I
go
think he's
away with
worried
the
about me.
personal knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Donna, you're back. Talk to us.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that I thought was interesting was all the references to fairy tales. And I think, I think we've all read original Grimm fairy tales that are really dark and have really kind of macabre kind of developments to the stories. And in this book, there clearly was that kind of backdrop. She mentioned several times how much her cousin loved the idea of fairy tales and living in a castle and all of that, which Noemi thought might have been one of the reasons why her cousin was so drawn to being there and staying there and, being with this guy, who was awful. But and when there was a fairy tale she mentioned, I think it was Sleeping Beauty, where she remembered how at the very end there's snakes that are green and gold and all of that, and that the stepmother probably, I think, anyway, somebody is relegated to this, barrel of snakes. And I thought that was pretty clever. I mean, in the sense that it added to that whole mood of the story when you kind of go back to thinking about those Grimm's tales in the forests and all the kind of moodiness of those. But at the same time, all that imagery of the green and the gold and all in the snakes. And I mean, there was all of that being woven into this novel was, I thought, pretty cleverly done. I mean, there's so much green, so much gold, the gold glint in the eye, the, gold dust from the spores and all of that. And of course, the recurring motifs of snakes and it just layered and layered and layered, like we've, I think, all talked about already, how it just builds and builds. But those using other kind of legends and so on that are not necessarily Mexican, but are certainly part of our own frame of reference culturally still, the European, old European, and then having that blended in was clever.
I mean, you keep saying green and gold, and every time I heard it, it's hard for me to think of anything other than the Green Bay Packers. When I hear those two colors mentioned together, it's just, that's what it is. I'm fine with it. I think they go well together. It's very powerful, and I kept thinking, you know what? There are Packer fans everywhere, even in this cave full of mushrooms, and that's fine. We accept that. And we're going through a tough time right now. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we're going to have the same quarterback or not, but we know that the green and gold. I can't imagine watching an NFL game on mushrooms. I don't know. I don't think that that's something you'd want to do. But anyway, all right. Anyone else on any of the other characters or themes represented here? More about her writing style. I see William's hand is up. William, talk to us.
One of the things I really liked about this book is how trapped the protagonist was in this estate. And like there was a component of kind of being physically trapped, like the road, there was lots of monsooning and flooding, and it was impossible to get out of this house. But, in kind of exploring some of those class relationships as well, you kind of establish this family's history that they're very well to do and have their own mine operation, have their own doctor, and you learn that like in their past they just like buried bodies of people who got sick or mysteriously died, and no one could really do anything because of their wealth and stature of the community. And like you see that expressed through, I think, the doctor character in town is kind of like, oh, I can't cross those people, they have their own guy or whatever. So I love the different ways there was just an all like trapping power of this and of the setting. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where at a certain point you're just like, what's the way out of here? I mean, it just keeps getting, deeper and darker. And yeah, I mean, I just didn't feel like there was for a while, like there was much momentum towards like this ending. Like, she kind of gets sidetracked from her main mission, and it's going down a different path, and it's kind of having these nightmares and dreams, and then also but oddly aroused and maybe interested in certain things. And it was a wild one that I wasn't totally surprised by. It felt like that's the kind of ending that you need to have with this kind of one. Like the only way out is that sort of a thing. And I don't know why I'm tiptoeing around it in case someone's doesn't want the end spoiled. But I mean, I was like, you got to burn this all down. I'm like, first of all, if you got that kind of mold in a house, I mean, I know houses, you just got to burn that down. I mean, I've talked to realtors. Any kind of mushrooms growing like that, you know what? You need to start over from the studs. Just hope the land is worth something at that point, because I don't know, you just can't move into a mushroom house like that. So Rebecca, talk to us.
There's a question in the chat about what was the gloom. And I think we all had a lot of expectations about what the ending would be like. I kind of thought of the Wizard of the Oz at the end, because that also kind of has a trip experience, very, very colorful world. And then they're kicked out of it, or, they come back to normality. So that was also one of the references that I thought. I did like the fairy tale references. And I had just read the children's book by A.S. Byatt. And it has a lot of or at least one section of it. The book has everything, but about the origins of fairy tales and how differently they're expressed in different cultures. So the German version of I'm not sure, it's Little Red Riding Hood, or no, Cinderella, I think that was the one that was used, versus the French version versus the other versions. The different cultures will interpret those stories in different ways, the same stories in different ways. So this is definitely a smart book, in that she took that genre and made it her own and turned it into something that pays homage to all of the other great stories about, fairy tales, etc. But I just wanted to say that the end for me was much more like Wizard of Oz than anything else. Safe, but kind of strange.
And interesting thing about that, I think, is that I can see a connection in the sense of how colorful, part of it is, and then it maybe goes back to a less psychedelic, less interesting sort of real world scenario that kind of plays into a little bit of the film version of Wizard of Oz. I see Maura's hand is back up. Maura, sing to us.
No. And you're welcome. So I was wondering that, I guess my one critique with it is I really wanted Francis, and this is maybe my own bias, is I really wanted Francis to be like openly queer, and for his relationship with Noemi to be like more of like best friends, as opposed to these romantic overtones. And I'm trying, I don't think it was like explicitly clear at the end as to whether they were like going to be dating, or like, oh, well, we're married now, let's live that married life. But I just think Francis, as part of that family, as being an outsider, that would have been a really great opportunity to make that kind of an openly queer character. And that was my one critique of this, is I just wanted a little gayness in it.
Well, I don't know anyone else that has anyone read any of our other stuff. I'm not sure if has she written any others regarding with queer characters that might satisfy you until she writes another one with more. I mean, I'm not surprised. I actually kind of thought that that he might be also, and that was maybe going to be said. But I mean, is it specified that he's not? I mean, maybe it's not clear enough that he is, but I don't know. Just throwing that out there too. Todd's got his hand back up. Todd, talk to us, please.
Yeah, I didn't see that one at all. And started from I thought Francis made perfect sense as what he was. because he was a vessel, and he knew that he was going to be the vessel. So he knew that I'm not even sure prior to this of sexuality or gender specification would have been something necessarily on his mind, because it came through, at least to me, that he saw himself as that vessel of something. Though I think the author's suggestion of the relationship, I thought successfully communicated more than just deep friendship. That I think he had a crush on her, or a love for her, in the only way he knew how. Here's a guy that's been suppressed all his life, and by the way, you're only going to be a vessel, and don't get too far ahead of yourself because you're just going to be a vessel. So I could kind of see it. It kind of made sense to me. I thought she actually did a good job with that one.
Okay, thanks. Kara, what do you think? Or what do you got?
Well, I was just to answer Maura's question about like the queer stuff. Unfortunately, I would say my only downside in this author is that like she's like pretty strictly heterosexual. Like sometimes I get queer vibes, but like it's always like if there's a romance, it's always between like a man and a woman. So if you're like specifically looking for that, I can't really be like, you'll find it in these other books. But I mean, I think she's great, and I think that like she writes like extremely strong like female characters that are not like purely driven by their relationships to men. So even if they are attracted to men, I will forgive them for that. And I think the really unique thing about her, and I mentioned this in a comment, but we haven't really talked about it, is like all of her stories take place in Mexico. And so like she has sci-fi, she has romance, she has horror, she has all of these different decades, and a lot of them are in Mexico City, but they're like in, like Mexico is just in general well represented. And like, at least for me, like I try to read pretty diverse authors, but even then, a lot of times it takes place in the United States. So I think like that's a really unique like element of her work. Like I've not read many sci-fi books that takes place in Mexico, or many sci-fi books or horror books that take place in Mexico, or anything like that. So that's one of the reasons I'm a really big fan.
Excellent. There's a show, Los Spookies. You guys know that show on
Los Spookies is amazing. It is so good.
Yeah, it's really cool. And that's in Mexico, right?
Yeah, that takes place in Mexico.
I mean, it's horror comedy. It's like it's kind of hard to describe, but I think if you watch a little bit of it, you're either in or out. And
it's like deadpan humor, and like it has like dark elements to it, but I wouldn't say it's really scary. Right. But it's about these like young people in Mexico that are like obsessed with spooky things, and they like put on spooky events for people. It's really, really good. And I think it's only like 6 episodes.
Yeah, check it out if you want to get into the gloam a little bit. All right, what else haven't we touched on with this one? What's the thing you guys want to talk about? Somebody tell me something that we haven't touched on. Be sure to bring it up. Someone else is probably thinking it. They're just waiting. They don't want to raise their hand. Who's the one? Rebecca, is there anything else in the chat that we missed?
Well, they were talking about the gloom. I brought it up and then I didn't talk about it, and then you didn't talk about it. So it's time to talk about it.
You want to talk about the gloam or the gloom?
Gloom. I thought it was the gloom, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I think it's spelled gloom, but I think for some reason I feel like the audiobook called it the gloam. Maybe not. I don't know. Who wants to talk about the gloom? The gloom is like the feelings, like all of the dead like negativity of the souls, like added together. Kevin, are you going to talk about the gloom or the gloam? Talk to us.
Sure, I can talk about the gloom or the gloam. I read it as gloom. I did not listen to the audiobook, so I read it as Gloom. But I did think it was kind of a cool idea, and it does kind of fit with the kind of the interweaving of life in some ways, like a way that, yeah, reposit. I mean, I felt like it fit into the book. I felt like it. I could buy it as these generations went through time and as they were kind of consuming each other in that way. I mean, like just the whole transient nature of that. If you to go way back when, I don't know how many people were, I don't know if anybody in this group read Rorschach texts with us
Yes.
from your. All right, you did for sure. But Rorschach texted you to think about how those ideas translated across generations and across time. I mean, I could feel there was some echo of that in the Gloom, that you know, there's to put the I still love that book, and that's a throwback to a book for people who haven't read it. It is something that has a very it's surprisingly, I bet it has a surprisingly modern feel right now, even though that book is probably 10 years old. But I don't remember when it was. But anyway, the idea to be able to translate ideas in a different way and how those would get into someone's mind, I liked that concept, even if it wasn't my favorite part of this book. So I guess.
I'm so glad you bring that up. I loved Rorschach text. That was an old Books and Bars favorite. And I might even have it in our bookshop playlist or a bookshop list already. I was in contact with the author. I was really rooting for another one to come out soon. And I don't know, like this was years ago. So yes, I have it in our 15 years of favorites already. I'm going to I'll send you guys a link. It's really cool. The cool thing about it is this is a book that would not translate well to audio. You have to read the print version of Rorschach text, partially because it does something that I, to that point, had only ever seen in like a children's flip book. But this is a book for adults where you flip the pages and there's a shark made out of text that is coming at you, that is coming for you. And so this book is some weird kind of hybrid of, I wouldn't say it's illustrated, but there are they use words, and the words are typeface, typeset in a way to create a shark that moves across the page at different times and grows over the course of the book, so that you are physically seeing more of a shark on your page coming at you and moving around as it goes. If this sounds like you can't even understand it, buy it and flip through it. I'm going to get it off my shelf right now and see if I can show it to you.
I just pulled it up like I have it. I still have it, Jeff.
Show it to him, Kevin. I'm going to go get mine. I'm getting mine right now because it's awesome. It's totally awesome. We should go read it again.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to step on Jeff either. And people, I think you guys haven't read it, but it is a
step
cool
away.
It's something.
Has anyone other than Kevin or me read this book? Anyone else? Raise their hand if you've read the Rorschach text. It's so good. You have the paperback or the hardcover in front of you.
That's getting off of this book though. But the idea, I think. But Jeff, you could buy into some of the way that idea translates, some of the way those ideas get through people's minds. And to go back to the Gloom, like.
You see it? Okay. Don't want to ruin it, but check it out. Yeah. So yeah, the idea of how the because it's transmitted. You know, it's like a virus in a brain kind of thing. But the Gloom is that how you guys would describe it? How anyone else want to speak to the Gloom? Kara's hand is up. Kara.
I was going to change the subject, but
okay, that's okay.
I'm curious because some people have said like they didn't like it because it was horror, which like I think is very fair. I'm actually super ambivalent about horror. Like I wouldn't describe myself as a person who likes horror books or horror movies or anything like that. But sometimes I really do like it. I think I tend to like, I really liked this, and I think it's largely because of the characters and the plot, and the horror elements were just something I was like, whatever, like it's there. I think if I'm gonna like it, I tend to prefer it in like a TV show or a movie. In books, I just don't get scared of books. So I think that it doesn't work for me. Like they'll try to write something scary and I'm just like, this is a description I have to get through to like get to more plot. So I guess I'm wondering if people have different feelings on horror, like if you just don't like it at all, if you like all of it, if you like it in books or movies or video games. Like I have a very different experience in like all different versions of that. So I'm curious about, you know, how people feel or their reasons. And there's like a very scary thing behind me. Can you see the eyes? Spooky.
I love the question of can you get scared by books, or how well do books scare us? And I would say that it's harder for me to be scared by a book, but one of the times I am the most scared is in the oral storytelling tradition, and that is literally sitting outside and someone's telling like campfire scary stories, ghost stories. And I have a book that is just like campfire ghost stories. That's it. That's what scares. Like when someone starts telling that story, what, you know, and they maybe pretend like it's true or something, and I mean, they're just telling the oral story. And now if I read that while sitting outside by myself at a campfire, would I be as scared? Very possibly. I don't know, because again, in that scenario, then I'm alone. But yeah, so that scares me. Anyone else on whether these things scare them? The book Night Film by Marisha Pessel, which I'm about to share a link of, that scared me too. And I absolutely love and highly recommend this book also. I just put it in the chat. Any other one? Who's got books? Maura, talk to us.
Yeah, I love horror in any medium, but I find that I get the most scared when reading books, because my imagination will take it places that um, that like visual media just can't. Like The Shining, I think, is a great example. Reading the book, I was absolutely terrified, and then watching the movie, I'm like, cool, it's a Stanley Kubrick movie. And there were some creepy elements, but it like did not match what my mind conjured up when the dead woman was in the bathtub and got out. And there's just something about books. I think Benjamin Percy is like terrifying but also like extremely hilarious in his books, so I love his stuff. And kind of in the vein of Mexican Gothic is Carmen Maria Machado's her shorts. I've read her short stories. I'm trying to remember. I'll look it up when I'm done talking. But they like gave me goosebumps reading them, and like will still like sometimes I'll be trying to go to sleep and will just like pop into my head and I'm like, can't go to sleep because my head's gonna fall off. So yeah, but I love horror in all mediums, and usually I watch through like my hands, but books, I think I'm just like a very imaginative person and a very kind of dark person, and so I can take it to places that I think that maybe pop culture won't take it.
All right, William, what about you? You get your hand up.
Yeah, I love horror in all forms, and I love like really big dumb teenage slasher films, but I'm also like a lifelong crusader with the belief that like I believe horror can be for everyone, and there is just like, if you don't think you like horror, you just haven't been introduced to the right like the right version of it. And like the horror I truly love is like, to me it's like really good sci-fi. Like there are just some really good cerebral character studies. Like I think horror has really interesting things to say about society, and you know, especially in the film world, I think we're in like, you know, this past decade has been a real renaissance of like really smart, well-written horror that has like a lot to say. So you know, if you want any slow burn or like more psychological, interesting horror recommendations, I would definitely be willing to throw some out.
Oh, I like it. I was going to ask if you know, had like a service where someone comes to you and you prescribe the perfect horror for them. They just haven't found it yet, and they think they're not a horror person. But if you sat down with them for a few minutes, they would leave with that horror to check out, and they'd come back to you and be like, I took 2 of your horrors and called you in the morning, and I feel great. I was so scared. I never liked it before.
My
but
wife has
now
definitely been a good test case. You know, she was
Okay.
would not do any horror, and I was like, no, we're gonna do some of this, and she's like, she's more into it now. So
Yeah, I have my wife included and some other friends who they don't want to watch it, but they don't mind me explaining it all to them like the next day. Like they're interested in like what happened in that story, but they don't want to witness those 90 or 100 minutes themselves. But they'll like me to give them like the 7-minute version of it, and tell them what I like. I saw a good one the other day. I want to throw out there, kind of a little under the radar one from. It was on the shelf for a while. This is a horror film called The Empty Man. It's fairly recent on video. You should check it out. It's way better than I thought it would be. Thought it was well worth a watch. So The Empty Man, check it out. Anyone else see it? William, I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
I've not seen it yet.
Okay,
no.
well, put it on your list and call me in the morning. The Empty Man, trust me on this one. Okay, Rebecca, what are you sending? Is it a picture? Is it a sketch? Did you sketch us out? Sketch notes from today already from Rebecca in the chat. Thank you, Rebecca. Well, you guys, not to confuse you, but I want to remind everybody, the 20th. No offense to our Zoom friends only, but the 20th is the rare kickoff, a kickoff to back to being in person at Local Roots on 66th Street. The patio is ours. We'll have picnic tables. We have outdoor seating. There's a cover. Hopefully it's not raining, but some of it's under cover. There's fire pits. Don't know what we'll need. Who knows in Minnesota on May 20th? It could be 85. It could be 45. I'm hoping it's 75, but we'll see. We're going to be there. We'll have the microphone out. We're going to do it old school again. If you've never done it, but you're in town, want to join us, I'll explain it all. It's really easy. It's very similar to this. I have a wireless microphone. People raise their hands and I bring them the microphone and then they make their comment, ask their question, and then someone else raises their hand based on that. And I work around the room and give everyone a chance that wants to talk. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You'll order food and drinks at the counter, bring it outside, and or they'll bring it to you. I'm not sure how that works there. I think, and then we'll sit outside, have a great time. There's a social hour from 5:30 to 6:30, and then the discussion is at 6:30, and it'll probably go about the same amount of time as these have, 75 to 90 minutes. So that's once a month, May through October. Starting in June, it's just one book a month, Wednesday Zoom, Thursday in person. And so so on the 20th is Writers and Lovers by Lily King at Local Roots to kick that one off. That's where you can win the press, win 4 cases. 4 winners will each get 1 case of the press seltzer. And then June through October, we have the schedule set up, and I will update all of the websites, social media, all of that, and share it with you guys. I put a link in the chat to the next Zoom, and I put the website for Local Roots where we'll meet on the 20th. June's book is a bit of a horror though. So if you like this one, maybe you like that one. It's called When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. And it's a little bit like Get Out. There's a little bit of a Get Out aspect to it, but it deals with gentrification. And I think you'll enjoy it. There's a little bit of humor in that one too. And Alyssa Cole is not normally a horror writer. She writes more like romance and romantic comedy type of stuff. And there is some romance in this one too, and some comedy, but there's definitely some horror and some gore. It's very different than Mexican Gothic, but if you're looking for a little more of a good summer scare, I think you'll get it with that one. So thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. Again, I don't intentionally pick some of these books because I'm reading them along with you. I mean, I intentionally pick the books, but I don't always know if they're going to have certain things in them. And I'm not trying to create a body of work that includes incest. So just to go back to that, I want to make that very clear. That's not what it's about. And I don't know. Like, I want to be as surprised as you are, and I usually am. And sometimes I love them, sometimes I don't. But on our bookshop, you can also see we've been doing this for 17 years, and I've made a batch of our favorites, a whole just a whole list that you can go through if you haven't been with us for a while, to go back and check it out. But thank you, Kevin, for being with us for this long, to remember Rorschach text also. So thanks to Rebecca for the sketch note and for co-hosting tonight. I'm so excited to see you guys. Hopefully most of you will be vaccinated or on your way to be vaccinated. But again, we'll be sitting outside. See you on the 20th. All right. And then see you, the rest of you, on Zoom in June.
Can I just say one quick thing, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great job at the Minnesota Book Awards with your presentation and then the after party. You rocked it.
You're
And
here.
It was just great. So it was wonderful to see you doing that.
Thanks. You know, it was a lot of fun, and we were all pleasantly surprised. We didn't know how that epilogue, that after party would go, because we didn't know which authors were going to be there. Because people asked, was that planned, that bit between you and Louise Erdrich? No, it wasn't planned. And I was pleasantly surprised that Louise was that talkative and that funny and wanted to see my socks and all of that stuff. So the awards are online. You can go to the Friends, and you can find the book awards on YouTube. I can share that link if you want. I don't know if the after party is up yet, or if they're going to edit that and put that up. But if it isn't, it's just another reason why you had to be there. It was so much fun. So many authors joined in, and we got to ask them questions, and it felt really personal, and felt like behind the scenes, having a drink with the authors, and just talking about stuff. And Louise Erdrich, love her, so funny. And yeah, so thank you, Gretchen. Thank you to anyone that watched it. And thanks again to the Friends for supporting Books and Bars. And they're going to continue to support us, and that's why we're going to keep doing Zooms and in person. So thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a good night.